thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon for the Miller Motorcars Speaker Series, which has been a great hit. We want to welcome Stefan Silaf, head of Bentley Design for Bentley Motors, who's kindly joining us at a very late hour of the evening. So thank you again, Stefan, for joining us. It's a huge treat and an honor to have you join us and have an opportunity to speak with you today.
Hello, and good afternoon, good evening from my side. And thanks, Evan, for the introduction. And yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you, and we'll have a great time to talk about cars and design and perhaps some things even not related to Bentley, maybe your past of your art that you've shared over your career, which is quite fascinating. And just for those who don't know, you joined Bentley Design in 2015, and you previously were the design director for the Volkswagen Design Center, and you've worked on a lot of cool projects in the past, and it's kind of fun that you've done so much, everything a little bit different, but to work for Bentley is certainly must be a pinnacle point of your career, and to be ultra English and to carry the passion for Bentley, it must be a big responsibility, I imagine.
Yeah, I think it's always the same when you have a job that contains a lot of responsibility. You are not always reflecting this. And as a designer, I think working with a team of creative people, and definitely all of the team are younger than me. So you have a lot of lively activities every day in the design studio, not in the moment because of Corona, but generally speaking, and a lot of dynamism. So you are not able to reflect how much responsibility it really is. And yeah, I enjoy it still very much. My career is now for more or less 35 years, 31 years in the Volkswagen Group. I had in between 3 years with Mercedes-Benz, but most of the time with Audi and within the Volkswagen Group. And now, as you say, the last 5 years with Bentley. Yeah, and it is a little bit like coming home. Despite the fact that I'm German, I love Great Britain, my wife as well. So we are very addicted to the British lifestyle, and I'm always was addicted to British cars. And of course, Bentley is the coolest brand, the coolest car brand in Britain. So as you say, it is really the pinnacle of my career, fulfillment of a lifetime dream. And yeah, I enjoy the dream now for 5 years.
Yeah, well, you're doing an excellent job, and we see your work. We drive your work, and it's fun to see that, and it must be a treat to put that together. I have so many good questions for you. One to kind of dive into. You went to design school via scholarship of Audi, and clearly you always have had a passion for cars and design. Was there one moment or one person or a car from your childhood that sparked this passion of automotive design?
Yeah, indeed, I had a very early situation in my life that made at least everybody clear that I'm bloody interested into cars. I have to say, I grew up in Munich, in Germany, in a family business. We were dealing with tobacco and cigars. And obviously, I grew up in this business, and we had obviously customer. And I must have been about 4 years old. Yeah, 4 years. And so this must have been the 1966, 1967. And there was a famous film director living in Munich, and he always came to our business for shopping. And he arrived in one of the very first 911 Porsche, and his wife was in the car waiting for her husband. And that's what the story tells. I personally can't remember it 100%. So I ran out of our business, of the shop and everything, and literally was walking towards the Porsche 911 and was just looking at the lady and said, "Wow, you have a Porsche." And so she came then for the next 30 years every week to the shop of my parents and told them she couldn't believe it that the little boy was able, first of all, to realize it is a Porsche, and then, obviously talking, not even being able to look into the car because I was not tall enough. But this was definitely the beginning of my fascination of cars, sports cars in this case. And later I was also developing a big love for fine arts. And then quite late, even when I started to study product design at Munich University, I realized that fine art, design, and cars can be connected. And then I started really to work hard to become a car designer.
Wow. Well, it's fun to see, you can enjoy what you do, and sometimes it must feel like just good fun. Are there any other areas of design that influence you? With the work you do? I see this beautiful art behind you.
Yeah, this is something I do in my spare time. This one is literally about 25 years old. I made 3 of these really huge paintings when I was working in the new design studio in Sitges, close to Barcelona, which was at that time opened to do design work for Volkswagen, Audi, and Seat. And I had at that time the big honor with my bosses to build up this studio, and literally from scratch. And we had a fantastic young talented architect, and the studio was built in this little town very close to Barcelona. And when we moved over there, when I also moved over there to live there in the end for 3 years in this area of Catalonia, I was painting these big paintings for the studio because the studio had a lot of light. It looked like a modern art gallery, and I was literally donating these 3 paintings to the studio, and it was really, really cool. And later, when I obviously moved back to Audi, I came from Audi to Barcelona, and I moved back to Audi afterwards. Then my boss came to me and said, "Well, one of the paintings you have to take with you, and this one is then now following us with all the moves we have been doing, and now it's sitting over here in our kitchen. So you can't see the kitchen, but you can see the painting." Yeah, and this is what I like to do besides car design. And we can talk a little bit about cars and what I like to do with cars and so on later on.
Sure, absolutely. Anyone who, a designer, an automotive designer specifically, that's inspired you, a hero of yours in that realm?
Yeah, there are obviously a lot of names I could mention. But first of all, as you mentioned before, I had the chance to study at the Royal College of Art in the 1980s with a sponsorship from Audi. And some of the gentlemen I studied together over there, they are also in car industry, like Marek Reichmann, who is design director of Aston Martin, or Thomas Ingenlath, who is design director of Polestar and before Volvo. And we have been colleagues together in Audi and in the Volkswagen Group for a long time. So a lot of, let's say, famous names in the car industry who are in the pinnacle of their career in the moment. Of course, I had a fantastic boss, Mr. Varkus, who was design director of the Volkswagen Group for many, many years. And he was one of the gentlemen literally also to support me in the very beginning of my career. Peter Schreier, who is still design president of Kia, Hyundai, and Genesis in Korea. He was a big supporter of myself and my work, and I admire his work. And finally, I have to say, a gentleman I always was extremely impressed was Giorgetto Giugiaro, the founder of Ital Design, and I would say a living legend. He designed so many cars, from the Maserati Ghibli to the Volkswagen Golf, to the Fiat Panda. So from very small little boxes to absolutely fascinating pieces of art. And he is now 84, and I met him in a award ceremony in Paris in February, together with his son Fabrizio. And he looks younger and younger the older he gets, and he's active. He's still having his own little design studio, working every day. And yeah, he's a fascinating person as well. And he also inspired me a lot.
That's beautiful. And just everyone who's also joining us, we encourage you, if you have a question, please kindly just drop it in the box. We'll try to get to you in a little bit. And we're curious to hear what you guys are also wanting to learn about Bentley and Stefan's work, and we look forward to hearing those. I've got a pretty simple question for you. What was your first car?
Yeah, it was a Triumph Spitfire, so a British car, as I say. It was definitely a car where I had the chance to learn a lot about car mechanics, because I had a lot of problems with the cooling and some other mechanical parts. So I was repairing the car quite often. It was a rather cheap car, but also a fascinating car. The design was done by Michelotti, an Italian designer, and it was a very tiny, a small car, and I'm quite tall. I'm 1.92 m. So nevertheless, it was a great experience, and it was a little convertible, so really, really enjoyable.
That's fun. Do you have a dream car, like money no object?
Yes, I have, and of course it is a Bentley. My dream car would be a Continental R Mulliner from 1952. Wow. You know, there only exist about 78 cars worldwide, and it's definitely an object I can't afford. But it is a dream car, absolutely. Beautiful.
Well, that's a good choice. That is a really, really strong design.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. It's a super, super sculpture. Wonderful.
Very fun. So you working with others on the team as well who design all these great Bentleys. You guys have a pretty extensive range right now, and I imagine you guys are working on the future and secret things and testing. How many people are on the design team and work with you?
Yeah, we are not such a big team, to be honest. We are quite small and effective. So we are around 70 people, and it contains exterior design, interior design, and within interior design we have CMF, color, materials and finish, and we have also UX, user experience. Then I have a department that is dealing with all the digital work, CID modeling, so data generating, and also visualization. Also virtual reality, so we are working in a very modern setup. And then we have the department that is still doing clay models, because especially in the exterior design, we still need clay models, full-size clay models. So we mill the data into the clay, and we still have clay modelers who are then working together with us on the sculpture. It is still, despite the fact we are quite active in the virtual, in the digital world, literally creating data from the very, very beginning of our work. Also the young designer, they are all able to generate their own data. Nevertheless, we all agree it is not yet possible to judge the exterior design from a proportional point of view, and let's say also from a sculptural point of view. It's something where you still have to elaborate and to investigate in a full-size clay model. And you know, the advantage with clay models is you can paint them, and yeah, very simple in a way. We always paint them in silver, and the glass areas we paint in black, and then all bits and pieces. Sometimes in the very beginning we just glue paper overlays on these full-size models, and then we drag them into the daylight, and we check mainly the proportions and the highlights outside the studio. We have, let's say, next to the studio building, we have the so-called a styling garden. And this is a big area where we can push the models and also get some other cars next to the model. So have to have also the relationship and the proportional comparison. And yeah, and you need daylight. This is also very, very important. Another thing, you can't simulate 100% in data yet. So to see the object and the sculpture in different daylights, and you can imagine we always have Californian sun in crew, more or less 365 days per year. No, but generally speaking, we have to check things in daylight. That's very, very important.
That's interesting. But you guys, being in crew, I guess, where's your design studio? Is it physically?
Physically on site, literally behind you, and then a little bit when you turn around to the left, at the far end of the let's say factory area and the engineering area, there's the design studio, very much protected. We have a special entry system, so not even all engineers can go there, because as you said before, the work we are doing is literally 5 years in the future.
Yeah, it's amazing to have all that and have to predict the future and create something so cutting edge. There must be a lot of pressure. I was always fascinated by the Bentayga. I think there was so much anticipation in this car, and being Bentley making their first SUV, and you guys would always say, if it's going to be a Bentley, it must feel like a Bentley and look like a Bentley. And I think you guys absolutely nailed it, and it's been a great success. And it'll be interesting to see, this is a segment within all luxury brands. They all have an SUV, and I imagine you guys will evolve it in the future. But maybe this is not a question, or just a compliment, but it must be fun to work on something a little bit different, in different proportion, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we have been working obviously on kind of next step with the Bentayga, and it's always a joy to, as you say, to have different proportions and different sculptures. And an SUV is obviously a big object, so it was a long process, and also in the interior design, not to forget about that. But generally speaking, it was a long journey, and it was great. And then after the Bentayga, to do the new Continental GT and the convertible, and then the Flying Spur. It's good fun. So
the Continental line, which has kind of become, the Continental has become so classic since its introduction in 2004 and its evolution. It's almost kind of become like the 911, where if you make even some, modifications to the shape, it's become classic. How would you spec a Continental for yourself, Stefan?
I literally did something which is incorporating exactly what I would spec for myself. You remember last year we had the centenary, the 100th birthday of, that comes very close, the 100th birthday of the brand, and the centenary, we did a lot of different activities, and one of the activity with our colleagues in Mulliner Coach Building was the number 9. So we did 100 cars of the Continental GT in a verdant green, which is slightly darker than the green behind you, very slightly darker. And we had the option inside black interior or green interior. And I have to say, this verdant green exterior and interior with the number 9 in the grille, and all these little details with the centenary thread in the green leather. Only the organ stops were in gold, and we used the organ stops from the Mulsanne because they were interchangeable. And these little badges on the fenders. So a very delicate balance of, let's say, centenary details in kind of gold bronze, and then all over green. And even the wheels, you could also order the wheels in a very distinct dark green, and it looked fantastic. And the cars were sold out in one day. 100 cars only, 100th birthday, and a special little badge also in the interior saying 1 of 100. Yeah, it was great fun to design the car, and it was also I always fell in love when I saw one of the number 9s in the factory, and I always thought, this car is exactly what I would like to own.
The color is spectacular. I believe we may have got one into our inventory. Perhaps it is sold. If not, perhaps people can see it on our website. If it is, they're quite unique. They're a very exclusive run of cars, and I would say a collector's piece, but also something to drive. It's classic. So tell me something you've done in your other part of your career. If it was with Audi, what other points of your career, other things that you focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I started in Audi in the late 80s after the Royal College of Art, and I had I would say it was a big coincidence that I was involved very early in a project. It was called the Audi Quattro Spider, so a mid-engine sports car. And it was a great experience, and it was a show car. We did it for the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1991. And I learned a lot during this time in Audi. And as I said, I worked a long time for Audi. In between, I was 3 years with Mercedes, which was also a great experience, a very different culture, also company culture. And then I was brought back to Audi. I was then 6 years design director for the brand Audi, and this was the time where we ramped up a lot of products like the Q5, the A5, the A5 Sportback, the A7, the A1, the A3 Cabriolet, so loads of cars. But also in the earlier days of my career, I was happy to participate in the RS4 projects, in the RS6 projects, in the R8, so the second generation of the Q7, the third generation and the fourth generation of the Audi A8. So yeah, it was a good time. But later, when I was with Walter de Silva, my boss at that time, in group design and leading the Potsdam Advanced Studio for the group, we did a lot of projects within the group, and it was a fantastic experience as well, because I was responsible for interior design in the group, and I was literally involved in projects with Lamborghini, with Bentley on the one hand side, but also with Scania and MAN, the truck division, on the other side. So the full spectrum of our group. And it was a fantastic experience as well. And I learned a lot, which is always great. Nevertheless, after this time, I got the phone call from the Bentley board literally 5 years ago, if I want to join, because my predecessor, Luc, an old colleague of mine, Luc Donkerwolke, he joined Kia Hyundai in Korea. And so the position was open, and I was literally asked if I want to join Bentley, because everybody in the group knew that I'm addicted to British lifestyle and British cars and to Bentley. And yeah, it was a fulfillment of a lifetime dream. And I immediately, I didn't say immediately yes. I said, I have to sleep over it and I have to talk to my wife. But next day I said yes.
Yeah, it's quite a special opportunity. It's fascinating. I think for people who are listening, that much of your career is interior focused, taking that transition to exterior.
Yeah.
Two very different elements of the automobile. Was that a challenge for you?
Not really. I mean, when you do car design, you're normally in both directions. I always had a big love for interior, because especially when I started my career, nobody was so much interested in interior. And I always follow the credo. Obviously, you have to fall in love with the car, and this is the exterior. But then the long-lasting relationship or partnership or even marriage with the car, but also with the brand, you experience in the interior, because then you spend a lot of time in the car, and you experience obviously the technical advantages of the car, but you also experience all the atmosphere, the materials, the architecture, the cocooning, so light, the whole, let's say, user experience. And and this is for many, many years. And especially now with Bentley, it's so essential. And as you know, and as our guests know for sure as well, I think 85% of all Bentleys ever built are still alive, and in most of the time in family possession or in museums or whatsoever. But they're still existing. Nobody throws these cars away because they are so well done, so precious, so much love and heartblood in the whole execution of the exterior and the interior. And this is for me also a signal of sustainability, something you don't throw away, you keep. And then I think it is a good investment of money in the end of the day, because like my grandmother said, the expensive things are the best investment, because you keep them forever and they stay with you forever. And a big part of this, to come back to your question, is really, I believe, the interior design, because you're surrounded by it every day when you use the car. And yeah, coming also back to your question, it was never a problem for me to interchange in between exterior and interior. But as you say, generally I started on the interior side. But yeah, sooner or later you switch forward and backwards.
Yeah, that's fun to move around a bit. I think for those, the history of Bentley was also associated with Rolls-Royce, which have gone in their separate directions. Both have a lot of rich history, very British in their own way. How do you say, maybe contrast the two brands? They're both different. I think even sometimes a different buyer, different wishes, desires.
Yeah.
Is there like a contrast between the two, that, Bentley is different than Rolls?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, our history, the Bentley history, is much more related to, first of all, to performance and to racing. As you know, W. Bentley was founding the company in 1919, and very soon he realized he has a lot of adventurous customers, all these still young gentlemen coming back from the Great War, from the First World War, and still looking for this kick of adrenaline, and obviously not sitting in fighter planes any longer or on the battlefield. They were looking for something else, and this was car racing. And then all the famous racing cars, the Blower, the Birkin Blower, the Speed 6, all these cars were obviously Bentleys. And so a very active attitude, or let's say the Blue Train, doing the race from Cannes to London with this famous train, or in comparison with the train. So it was always about speed, about acceleration, about performance, about torque. And Ettore Bugatti once mentioned, while the Bugattis, the Type Bs and the super big Bentley Blowers were racing in Le Mans, Ettore Bugatti said the fastest lorries in the world about the Bentleys racing. And yeah, obviously then there was a period where Bentley and Rolls-Royce were together, and Bentley was in a way only a derivative of a Rolls-Royce, more, let's say, the active sporty one. But I think the true character of the brand started to become alive again when the Volkswagen Group took over 22 years ago. Because then, it separated. BMW was obviously taking over Rolls-Royce and moving towards Goodwood with their factory, whereas the Volkswagen Group and Bentley were staying in Crewe, in the original headquarters, in the original factory, investing a lot of money, but keeping the spirit and also the craftsmanship abilities over there. And whenever you come to the factory, you can feel this craftsmanship ability. There are only 2 robots in the factory. Everything else are human beings with a lot of craftsman ability, and the people on the sewing machines hand stitching the steering wheel, 1 steering wheel per day. This is still giving a lot of human heartblood, and this is something you feel today. You feel it in the Bentleys even today. this human heart blood. It's done by human beings. It's not done by machines. And yeah, I mean, as you know, we are doing in between 10 and 12,000 cars per year. Don't ask me about this year, but generally speaking, 10 to 12,000. This is nothing from the volume point of view. This is super exclusive. You know, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, they are producing 2 million cars per year as a brand. So this relationship in between 12,000 and 2 million makes already very, very clear that Bentley is a very different product. And sorry, I'm going away a little bit from your question. The last curve I have to take now, coming back to Bentley and to Rolls-Royce. I think Rolls-Royce is always only, in quotation mark, only focusing on luxury, whereas in Bentley we always keep saying the fusion of the best performance and luxury, and it's a very different definition.
Yeah, it's nice to, and they're both respectively different and beautiful, and it's nice to see the two brands in a healthy place. I'll switch gears a little bit. You know, talking about the future a bit. How does electrification fit into the world of high horsepower with power plants? This is maybe more of an engineering kind of aspect, but it's happening. We don't have to talk about what specifically. But we see it with the Bentayga hybrid. You designed that beautiful concept that we got to see last year, which was a huge hit.
Yeah.
You're hinting to it. I mean, how do you feel about the future? And
we could talk about this for sure for 1 hour, because it's a highly philosophical question. Because well, generally speaking, not to make a long story out of it, there is an extreme trend, and it's driven by the CO2 emission legislation, maybe mostly into doing full electric cars, battery elevated cars. And the first step, as you stated correctly, is the PHEV situation. So we will, as you know, we still have our 12-cylinder, the 8-cylinder combustion engine, and then obviously we are also switching over to PHEVs, to plug-in hybrids, for all our products. This is the next step. And then the next step afterwards will be full battery elevated vehicles as well. We have been giving a clear statement, as you mentioned before, with the EXP 100 GT, our centenary concept car, which was a kind of manifesto of the future of the brand. And we were following definitely technology roadmaps, so it was not a kind of crazy designer dream. We were following all our technology roadmaps within Bentley and within the Volkswagen Group. So the XP100 GT was and is a full battery elevated vehicle, so full electric. And it also was showing the future on behalf of autonomous drive. So we had this sitting configuration of 2 seats in the rear, where you could literally enjoy an autonomous drive, and then obviously also 3 seats or 4 seats moving forward and backward. And you also still could enjoy your active driving, because we think even in the next 15 to 20 years, there will be always certain areas wherever you go where you have more kind of swarm intelligent autonomous driving situation, but also then other areas where you have to drive and where you also still want to drive on your own. But full battery, the whole story about battery elevated vehicle is something which also will hit Bentley, that's for sure, sooner or later.
Yeah. We have a lot of people in our market, probably just like many around the world, who love the W12. They sometimes want to wait a little bit longer if they can get it, because there's really nothing that feels as powerful and torquey and special as this power plant.
I do agree. The 12-cylinder is absolutely fascinating from the torque and from the whole propulsion and the whole acceleration experience. Funnily enough, and for sure a lot of you have been also driving and testing battery elevated vehicles. electric vehicles. The torque is also not a problem with these cars. So you get also a fantastic experience of torque and acceleration. I think it is worth testing and experiencing this as well. I personally, that's my personal opinion. I think it, as always in life, there is not only black and not only white. So we will see for a very, very long time a mixture of different technologies, of combustion engines, of PHEVs, and of battery elevated vehicles. We will even see, I'm very sure, synthetic fuels in combustion engine, almost a renaissance of combustion engine with synthetic fuels. And we will see also fuel cells with hydrogen. So I think there will be a pluralism of propulsion technologies and not only one. So we will see different directions in the future.
Fascinating. We have a nice question from Zachary Englemeyer. With the ceasing of production of the Mulsanne, how will Bentley continue the hand-built tradition with circular sustainability in mind? Interesting question.
First of all, correctly, we finished the production of the Mulsanne. From my point of view, unfortunately, because it was and is a fantastic car. I personally love to drive the car. It's incorporating definitely a genetic code of Bentley, and it will be a classic, like a lot of these great big Bentleys that have been done before, like the Brooklands, and I'm personally also a big fan of the Brooklands, by the way, or the Anage, and all these fantastic cars we have done in the early past. I think we will see in the future a little bit more differentiation or diversification in the portfolio. Obviously, we have the Flying Spur, which became slightly bigger, but is definitely a classic sedan, and therefore you might call it flagship. Then the sporty direction with the Continental GT and convertible, the Bentayga. And we will improve and increase our portfolio and work on new products. Obviously, I can't talk about it and I can't show you anything.
Can I show you something that you guys recently did? Really cool.
Yeah, show. Absolutely. I know what's going to happen. It's going to be yellow, and it's the Bacala. Yeah, that's another story. Still 12-cylinder. Yes, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, we did it last year. We finished, while we were finishing the EXP 100 GT, we ramped this project up very, very quick, because we got all of a sudden the green light for doing a show car for the Geneva Motor Show for March this year. So we finished the car in February. It's a running car. So what you see behind you is a true photo. It's not a Photoshop thing. It's a true photo of the car running on an airfield in Scotland in February. Just imagine the weather over there. You can't believe it. And it is the show car. We couldn't show in Geneva, unfortunately, because Geneva was cancelled because of the coronavirus as well. And as you know, it is a project together with our friends in Malina Coach Building, our coach building department in Bentley. And we decided to do a very small production number of 12 cars related to the Birkin Blower, which is another project in Malina Coach Building. This reconstruction of 12 Birkin Blower, literally reconstructing these cars with original old tools, the same manufacturing technologies. So there is no modern screw on the car. Everything, every bolt and every screw and every bits and pieces are done in the original production technology. And Malina Coach Building is reconstructing 12 of the Birkin Blower. And we said, okay, and then we do 12 of a modern interpretation of coach building. And this became the Bacala, again, a two-seater like the Birkin Blower without the roof, really. And all 12 cars are sold. We have some more people who are interested on the waiting list. And the first car is going to be delivered by the end of this year, and then every month another car. And in the moment we are in the process of configuring with the customer each car individually. So no Bacala will look like the next. So it will exist only one time. Sorry, it will only exist one time in yellow, in this yellow flame exterior paint. But some other customers are more interested in different color combination and material combination. So yeah, it is a fascinating project. It's also fascinating for us and for my team because we are in direct contact with the customer. I think our colleagues in Bugatti are doing these experiences, and Lamborghini as well, of doing limited editions or one-offs or one of 10. And this always needs a strong relationship with the customer because we want to do a spot-on statement. So every customer really feels happy when she or he receives the finished car exactly like a dream car.
Yeah, there's some fun projects you've done, and hopefully you'll continue to keep the trend going.
Yeah, don't worry. We will do some more stuff.
Fun, excited. We have a question from a good customer of ours. What was the hardest project you've worked on? It doesn't have to be Bentley. It could be something that was just so challenging to achieve.
It's not that I can't remember. It's just there were so many difficult projects.
Right? You can come back to it.
I just asked myself which was the most difficult one. I think, first of all, to warm up a little bit, I always keep saying with designing a car, it is a little bit like birth giving, despite the fact we as men don't know really how it works. But let's say birth giving, sometimes it can happen very quickly. You know, it can happen within 5 minutes, or sometimes it can take really, really long. And yeah, when you do design projects, you never can be sure. Sometimes it takes for ages to find the final solution, and sometimes it goes very quick. Like with the Bacala, we were obliged to do the thing in a very, very short period of time, and we were lucky. It was happening very quickly, and we were lucky. Everything worked out the way we wanted it, and so we were in a lucky situation. I wouldn't say unlucky or unhappy, but yeah, some projects are more demanding, more challenging. I remember when I was in the Potsdam design studio, leading this kind of advanced group design studio, we were working on a project called Volkswagen XL1, which was extremely demanding project because it was supposed to be, and it became a small production series of cars, literally using only 1 liter of fuel per 100 kilometer, and later it was transformed, the project, into an electric project. So it was one of the first battery elevated cars about 8 years ago, extremely aerodynamic, extremely small with galving doors, but it still looks like a spaceship. And it was very demanding because we had such high demands on the aerodynamics of the car. And as I said, also the interior was super reduced. We had to reduce a lot of weight. And it was very, very, very special. And it was very, from the engineering point of view, very, very demanding.
Yeah, I think I remember that one. That was pretty neat. Fun. So being, with Bentley and doing design, does the company, let you kind of roll with what you want to do? Is there a strong drive between a committee or a board? I imagine there's a lot of integral people involved.
Yeah, I mean, to be very honest, I could tell you now the fascinating story that we are artists and we are allowed to do what we want to do. But of course, I think we are artists on the one hand side, but we are also industrial product designer that have to follow certain obligations and rules. In the end of the day, we have to generate a product that is fulfilling, obviously, the wishes and the dreams of our customer. That's the most and important. but obviously we have to make very, very sure that all the technical requirements, certification, homologation, everything is fulfilled. The car has to be absolutely perfect. It has to be safe. It has to it has to tick all the boxes we have to do in front of the legal requirements. And so it is literally quite demanding. It also explains why it takes 5 years from the first idea, the first sketch, until you end up in the start of production and delivering the finished cars to the customer. And it's sometimes funny because, as you say, there are, the decision making, it can't be only done by designer in these days. It's a holistic process, and it's so complex. Sometimes I'm really shocked how complex our processes are in these days, because the technology is on such a high level, and also the legal demands are on such a high level, that it makes things really, really complicated. Also, because we have different legal demands in different countries. And so it is really, really a complex story. It's also complex in the factory. And there are all kinds of demands. One day, not with Bentley, but in my time at Audi, it was maybe also in the time where we were not completely working in the digital world. The guys came back quite late in the project and said, we have a big problem. We have to change the interior, the dashboard. And we said, come on. I mean, we are done. Why? And they found out they can't get the dashboard through the door opening in the factory. It was just too wide, and they couldn't get it through the door opening in the manufacturing process. And these things can happen, really. So sometimes interesting. You don't think about how many requirements we have in the design department. But nevertheless, it's a part of the job, and it's also the challenge. Otherwise, as I say, it would be fine art, but we are doing, obviously, production design.
Yeah, I imagine you have a lot of demands and requests from a lot of people, all trying to deliver one unified product.
Absolutely.
Peter asks a question, is there any chance of another super sports? We've had some great success with it. Who knows?
Who knows?
It's a good question.
It's a good question. I could say, as a designer, I don't know.
Yeah, it's more of a product.
Exactly.
We are getting a lot of great questions. Some of them are more engineering focused about weight and so forth. So we appreciate all your questions. We have a whole good list. Is there something that you always dreamt of doing, something that you haven't done in your career that you dream of, something that, if it's a facet of a car or a brand, or, I imagine you have to be careful what you say, but it's...
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, generally, the clear answer is, of course, again, I always dreamt about doing design for Bentley, first of all, Nevertheless, what I always enjoy as well is the cooperation with the racing teams. I had a good connection with the racing team at Audi, but now I also have a good relationship, or had during the last 5 years, a good relationship with the motorsport team in Bentley. Because in the motorsport, obviously the design is not the most important factor, but nevertheless, when you look at the GT3 racing cars, they have to look like a Bentley in the end. It doesn't make sense to do just something that is around the let's say the technology. It has to look like a Bentley, and the requirements are really harsh. To do a racing car is different than to do a normal production car, and it's a lot of fun. It's very much following aerodynamic rules. So when you do racing cars, you learn a lot about aerodynamics, and it has a special aesthetic as well. It is with all the livery you have to do, the graphic design. It's a lot of graphic design, literally, more than maybe product design. and all the sponsoring, and to make, in a way, in the end, it's a piece of art. It's very colorful. It's a lot of sponsor stickers, but it still has to look somehow aesthetically good. That's always our aim. And yeah, we are doing the liveries and all the aesthetic layout of the racing cars as well. And every season we do a new livery and make sure the whole graphic design is every year different. So last year we did a little bit with this kilting idea on the exterior and with gold, because it was our centenary year. And so it's always a big adventure, and it's something I really enjoy as well. It's almost, let's say, a relaxation, because things happen very quick. You don't have to wait for 5 years. You see the result in 3 months.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, the motorsport side is great. We seem to have a lot of fans of the Mulsanne here,
yeah,
which is great. A lot of respect for Mulsanne, and
absolutely,
it's a complete classic. Do you feel that since you ended this production, that the wheelbase of the Flying Spur, is it being extended? Is it maybe meant to be like 2 cars in one, perhaps? Because the Flying Spur has evolved in a beautiful way. The Mulsanne is being retired. Do you think they kind of combined the two?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I love the Mulsanne, but we also have to be fair. The technology was really getting into a situation. We had to literally finish the Mulsanne for legal reasons. We didn't get the certification for the car anymore. From the production process, to build the car was fantastic. It was a special building area. As you know, the Mulsanne was still made in steel, which was explaining also the really high weight of the car. So you obviously had to have a very powerful motor, the famous 8-cylinder. That was one of our most famous motors. So we have to stop that one with the Mulsanne as well because of emission legislation. So it's a little bit of a heartbreaker that we have to stop this car. And when you switch over and look into the Flying Spur, it is just extremely modern technology. The whole car is made out of aluminium, which generates obviously less weight and a better weight distribution as well. Yeah, it's like always in life. Yeah, the next step is the next step, and you have to experience. I think also driving a Flying Spur is really a fantastic experience. You would not believe how agile this big sedan is driving. So I think you have a very similar experience driving the Flying Spur as you have experience to drive the Mulsanne. And we have to see with regard to space and long wheelbases. I again can't say too much, but we are definitely experimenting with different proportion and long wheelbases in different products in our portfolio. Let's say it a little bit more vague.
That's lovely. We have one of our questions is, what are your thoughts on autonomous vehicles, and do they have a place within Bentley?
Well, as I mentioned before, the EXP100 GT was dealing with the idea of a level 5 autonomous vehicle. It's my personal opinion again, I think it will take still many years until this is really going to work out. I think from the technology point of view, if this thing is really under control, it is something that will be also important for Bentley for one reason, because I think autonomous drive is something that is going to happen in more in inner cities, where maybe the individual traffic is getting more and more difficult. So when you want to still drive in your own car in big cities, you have to maybe use swarm intelligence, and autonomous drive is a part of swarm intelligence that will make it possible that the traffic is still flowing in these, let's say, mega cities of the future. And as you know, about 70% of the global population will live in the next 50 years in mega cities. And therefore, the individual traffic is only maybe possible with autonomous drive. And therefore, it's very important for Bentley, because it will be a luxury thing to still drive in your own luxury car and not using sharing models or whatever kind of transport. So a Bentley still will be a luxury cocoon, and then maybe autonomous drive is an enabler to use this kind of experience in mega cities.
Fascinating. Someone had a question, an anonymous question. They asked, for me, what is your favorite Bentley? Mine would be an Arnage T, 2005 to the final series. Happens just to be maybe a generation, you grew up with a certain Bentley sedan that you see when you're
red label.
And then the red label, and then I guess that they introduced in '99 perhaps, and then transitioned to the T. And if you see one today, it's quite rare actually. They're so beautiful. Pierce Brosnan drove one in the Thomas Crown affair. He was going to steal the painting, and kind of a very beautiful thing. One other good question. From a design perspective, what do you feel sets Bentley apart from other brands? In other words, what design elements do you feel make a Bentley a Bentley?
That's a complex question. I think we have in Bentley, we developed obviously our own design philosophy. We call it design criteria. And it's a kind of genetic code of shape language. So again, I could talk an hour about this, but to make it maybe a little bit shorter, in the exterior we have a certain line repertoire, like the power line and the haunch, that are describing Bentley in a side evaluation. We have obviously the famous matrix grille in the front, which always will stay in Bentleys also in the future. Maybe not so much for getting air in, but maybe as a sensor record whatsoever. But it will be always a special element in the front, in the face of our Bentleys. We will always deal with roundish or elliptic lights. You have seen a new interpretation in the Bacalar, not using 4 headlights, but 2 headlights, but still roundish, elliptical, kind of human face expression. And power line haunch, and then the so-called horseshoe in the rear of the car. So we always interpret these lines new and innovative, but these are our main shape repertoire that is, in a way, defining the exterior lines and surfaces. I think the surfaces are very sculptural, very concave and convex, and in between these rather, let's say, sexy surfaces, a very, very crisp line with the power line and the haunch, the horseshoe, the, let's say, area around the matrix grille. This is giving a good balance and a good, a kind of good proportion. In the interior, we always are following the principle in direction of the dashboard of the double wing theme, coming from our Bentley double wings from the badge. And it always will generate a cocooning space for the driver and the passenger, whatever happens. This is very, very important for us as well. In very few words, I mean, on top, when we only look at the architecture, it's the double wing theme. When we are then looking more into detail, it is a kind of distinct reduction. Like with the rotating display, we are talking about digital detox, for example. This is very typical for Bentley. Sometimes less is more. You have the device when you need it, but you don't have to show it all the time. And then on top, you have the Yeah, let's say the material treatment, like all the quilting, the embroidery, this human craftsmanship we are still delivering in our cars, which make then the final touch in the interior. So this is maybe in short words the description.
Very fun. One of our other good questions is, what is your favorite piece of technology that's now being incorporated into vehicles? Is there a functionality there?
Sorry, I just didn't get it. Say it again.
So the question is, what is your favorite piece of technology that is now being incorporated into vehicles?
Well, I think it's mainly maybe the I would say certain elements of virtual technology. When you drive the car, you are in a way served by the car. You are virtual technology and digital technology in a pleasant way. We analyzed it to a certain extent in our history, and we said, first of all, it was machine centric. When you look at the Birkin blower, as a human being, you were sitting in the Birkin blower and you were obviously operating the machine. Whereas now we are more focusing into a human-centric design where the machine is serving the human being. So in a way, these technologies will enable us to experience a situation of service. So it will deliver almost a butler attitude when you are entering in a few years' time your modern Bentley with all these digital and virtual possibilities. You will be served in a very pleasant way, like a butler. You don't have to give a command. The butler knows already what you want before you know it, maybe yourself, and it starts already. I mean, we don't need a light switch anymore, to be honest. And this is a very simple example. And bit by bit, the technology in the car will for example, realize, you feel warm, you feel cold, you individually want a certain temperature around your feet, around your body. And this will all be delivered without giving any commands and without any operating activities. So you get the full service package. And then on top, I think you will, and we have shown this in the EXP 100 GT as much as possible, we have this so-called curation engine where you are enabling, the technology is enabling you into a outstanding in an extraordinary journey. Let's say, for example, you decide to go with your Bentley to a special hotel in Scotland for the weekend. Normally today you get your navigation system into activity and you drive from A to B on the motorway or whatsoever. In the future, with the curation engine, you might do a special trip. You can ask for doing the most beautiful landscape trip. You stop over in a farm and they give you a tour. Everything is organized by the system, by the Bentley system. And you will talk to the farmer. They show you the beef, the cattle they are breeding, because this farmer is delivering the meat to the hotel where you have the dinner in the evening. And then you stop maybe at the whiskey distillery and they give you a big tour. And this is the whiskey you will have after your dinner at the bar in the hotel. So you have a much more holistic experience and you don't have to organize it yourself. It's done, let's say, by this holistic butler idea. And this is, I think, something on top. This is something you can experience. You don't have to experience it all the time, but it is a true luxury experience. This is something you will not experience with another brand. This is definitely only possible in the future, doing extraordinary journeys. This is our company, let's say, manifesto, our vision for Bentley for the future, extraordinary journeys. And it is, of course, experiencing the drive, but it is also getting a lot of extraordinary experiences. And I think this is what it is all about. It's not only driving from A to B.
Yeah, it's an experience. Yeah. We're going to probably two more questions, and then we'll let you go. And it's been a good journey learning more about your philosophy at Bentley and your artistic passion. One question we have from someone specifically is the 3D lofted leather in the new Flying Spur is stunning. Who thought of this idea, and how much time was involved in designing it?
Yeah, I have to start with the Speed 6 show car we did for the Geneva show 6 years ago. I was involved in this show car already with my colleague Luc, who was at that time still design director of Bentley from the Potsdam Design Studio, and we did the interior for this show car. And maybe you recall the Speed 6, green, smaller sports car, and we showed in the interior exactly these 3D kilted wooden panels. And this was the original idea. And in the Flying Spur, we deliver in the moment the 3D leather exactly in this kind of design. It literally took us a few years during the development of the Flying Spur. I personally think it's really cool, this 3D leather. It's very modern. It's a modern appeal. And on top, next year through Mulliner, we will be also able then, instead of the 3D leather, if you want as an option, we will be also able to deliver the 3D wood for the rear doors. And it is really, really cool. It's a very traditional layout, this kind of kilting layout, but in a very modern way. And yeah, the whole production process is done within the factory. It is a kind of special procedure. It's quite complicated to explain, sure. But it's one of the lovely details I personally like very much, because they show a very modern attitude.
It's classic at this point. I think we'll wrap up. The last question is, being what you're creating is history, how does it feel, or what's your legacy, to leave within the Bentley brand, with the time that you're dedicating? The cars will live on for eternity, so. Yeah,
we always have this discussion with my team. As I mentioned before, I'm literally the oldest person in the design department, so I have a very young team, which is great. They are my first line team is literally 20 years younger than me, and then their team is even younger. So, and they are obviously very they have a lot of ambition. They want to do something outstanding, but we always discuss, and I always keep saying, in the end of the day, less is more. And I think the best design we can do for our customer is to do a classic statement. So when you when the customer is opening the garage gate in 20 years' time, it still has to be a pleasure to look at the car as a sculpture, and you have to be proud, and you have to say, wow, it still looks great. It's not a quick and dirty product you buy and you throw away after a few years' time. It's literally something you want to give to your daughter or to your son, and it stays in the family for decades, for a long, long time. So it's a collector's item, really. This is what our legacy is, what we want to do. Something everybody who has invested and paid a lot of money for the object is able to enjoy from the aesthetic point of view, because this is our business, is able to enjoy this for many, many years in a very fresh and, in a fantastic way. You're being fascinated again and again. That's important, like with human beings.
Well, we love your cars. We love your designs. We thank you very much for joining us, Stefan, for your valuable time. We hope that we can have you again and have you in Greenwich one day.
Yeah, in real life, in real life,
we hope to have
face to face.
Yeah, enjoy us and come for a drive with us. But thank you again for all your design, your art, your passion. We appreciate it and look at it every day. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
And enjoy your day off tomorrow, and your hopefully
Yes.
if you have a moment to breathe as well, because I know you guys are working very hard.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also thank you all listening to us, to the whole audience tonight or this afternoon. And yeah, literally next time we are going to see in United States, which is always a country and a place I love to go for many, many years. Unfortunately, I can't go to Pebble Beach this year because it is cancelled as well. I have been there for the last 5 years. And yeah, so hopefully a lot of your customers we will all see again very soon. And then we can talk from person to person, which is always the best. So nevertheless, I enjoyed it this afternoon together with you. And yeah, have a great evening and have a great Friday tomorrow and a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.